A quiet alarm you can only hear with your heart. You do the right things. You walk. You take your vitamins. You keep busy. Yet sleep is thin. Memory slips names. Energy dips at midday. Balance feels less certain, and independence whispers a little farther away. Here's the gap no one told you about. Doing more of what once worked often stops working after midlife because the body's priorities change. It asks for depth instead of volume, patterns instead of patches. Right now, try one action to test if this message is for you. Sit tall, breathe out slowly until your shoulders settle, and notice whether your jaw unclenches. If it does, your body is asking for slower, deeper inputs. Tonight, plan a 2-minute evening exhale. Nothing fancy, just a soft landing before bed. If within a week your sleep feels one shade heavier, you're on the right track. I'm speaking as someone with 8 decades behind me. I've lost people, regained strength, and learned that small hinges swing big doors in our 50s and 60s. Those who apply the following will feel sturdier in storms. Those who don't may keep chasing fixes that tire them out. I can't promise miracles, only what science tends to support and what many long lives quietly confirm. Simple, steady habits change everyday life. The weight of a cup and the weight of a day. In Portland, Dana, 52, kept a mug of coffee under a lamp on her desk until the bulb gave off a warm, paper-dry smell by afternoon. She answered emails with quick, polite smiles no one could see. Nights were crowded with thoughts. Mornings were thin soup. I asked her to trade the last coffee for a cup of chamomile, step onto her porch at dusk, and exhale as if fogging a mirror. She called the air cool on her cheeks, the streets soft with distant tires, the sky a quiet bruise turning blue. A week later she said, "I fall asleep like a cat curling into a patch of sun." What this means for a listener over 50, gentler routines in the last hour before bed often improve sleep more than adding stimulants during the day. First, choose one small ritual to dim your evening. Warm drink, low light, or slow breath. Next, keep your phone at arm's length in that last hour. Then, forgive today for being imperfect. Finally, get horizontal at the same time most nights. The promise is simple: heavier sleep, more morning clarity, steadier energy by noon. The risk of ignoring it is familiar. Light sleep that may lead to foggy attention and a short fuse with people you love. If this already stirs something, tell me one tiny change you'll try this week. A word or two is enough. If you're new here, consider subscribing so you can tuck these lessons into your week without effort. The body keeps the score, but you keep the pen. Strong legs and a steady core are the difference between a stumble and a story you laugh about later. After midlife, the body forgets strength faster than it forgets how to walk. That's why walking alone stops working the way it used to. Quick checkpoint for today. Stand up from a chair without using your hands. If you can, you're preserving power. If you can't yet, that's your training target: compassionate, doable, and measurable. Instruction: the 2-move daily strength anchor. First, place a sturdy chair behind you and a kitchen counter in front. Sit, plant your feet, brace your belly as if zipping snug pants, and stand up smoothly. Then sit down with control. Keep your chest proud and your knees tracking over your toes. Next, face the counter and place your palms on it. Step your feet back a little, keep your body in one line, and bend your elbows toward the counter for gentle push-ups. Feel the shoulders sit down and back. Then, repeat each move until your form wobbles slightly, but you could still do one more. Finally, breathe out long, shake your hands, and walk a lap through your home. Microstory 1. In Cleveland, Thomas, 60, kept a toolbox in the garage he rarely opened. One chilly morning, he tried the chair rises. The seat creaked, the air smelled faintly of cold metal, and he realized he'd been avoiding his own legs. Days later, he carried groceries up the stairs without pausing. One touch, the rough weave of the banister under his palm, felt friendlier. What this means for a listener over 50, lower body strength practice makes daily tasks easier within a few weeks. Microstory 2. In Brighton, Lila, 71, did counter push-ups while soup simmered. Steam fogged her glasses once, and she laughed. She wrote down how many she could do and watched the number climb. One touch. The warm tile under bare feet told her she was home and safe. What this means for a listener over 50, upper body strength helps posture and confidence during everyday chores. First, pair the two moves with something you already do daily. Next, keep a tiny log on the fridge. Then, add a short hallway balance walk, heel to toe, once you feel steady. Finally, notice stairs and curbs getting easier. Ignoring strength often leads to slower walking speed, which is associated with reduced independence later on. Light is a medicine you can't buy in a bottle. Sleep problems in our 50s and 60s are often timing problems. The body listens to light more than it listens to willpower. People try pills, podcasts, and perfect pillows, yet forget the morning sun. Right now, your quick pointer. Tomorrow, step outside soon after waking and let daylight touch your eyes for the length of a short song. If the sky is gray, it still counts. I think of Marco, 56, from Seattle. He worked from a narrow desk near a fern that never thrived. He woke to phone glow and stayed up with streaming shows. I asked for a light anchor, morning daylight, midday movement, evening dimming. On the first week, he described the cool air like a thin scarf around his neck, the faraway gulls, the taste of coffee sweeter after the walk. In a month, he no longer napped through his meetings. He said his wife noted he listened more, interrupted less. What this means for a listener over 50, consistent morning light and gentler evenings often improve sleep quality and attention. First, claim morning light like a daily appointment. Next, keep your home brighter before noon and softer after dinner. Then, taper alcohol and heavy meals as bedtime approaches to lower nighttime wake-ups. Finally, protect sleep with a regular rising time. If this is ignored, fragmented sleep may be associated with lower mood and shakier balance the next day. And a soft ask while we're here. If these life lessons from the elderly are useful, leave a short comment with the word light. It helps me know you're walking this road too. The company you keep, the years you keep. Longevity research keeps pointing to relationships as protectors, not loud parties, but steady, reliable ties. The Harvard study that followed lives across decades found that warm connections often predict healthier aging more than income or fame. After midlife, friends are not a luxury. They are joint support for the mind. Quick pointer now. Send one short message to a person you like but haven't seen in a while. If they reply with warmth, you're on the right path. Microstory 1. Janet, 65, in Toronto, ate soup alone by the window most evenings. A neighbor invited her to a quiet book club. The first night, the living room smelled of cinnamon tea. She listened more than talked. The next morning, her apartment felt less echoing. One touch. The wool of a borrowed scarf against her neck felt like permission to belong. What this means for a listener over 50, gentle, regular social contact often lifts mood and steadies memory cues. Microstory 2. Owen, 58, in Denver, fixed a leaking faucet for the man across the hall. They began sharing weekend coffee. The building's hallway, once a tunnel, turned into a familiar path. One touch. The warmth of the mug through his palms anchored him. What this means for a listener over 50. Purposeful favors create micro-purpose that supports resilience. First, schedule one predictable touchpoint weekly. A walk, a call, a shared task. Next, choose a small community anchored by something you enjoy. Then, carry a conversation seed in your pocket, a question about a book, a recipe, a memory. Finally, notice how days feel shorter and evenings friendlier. Without this, isolation may lead to lower motivation and restless sleep. Food is fuel, but timing is the spark. People in their 50s often eat like they did decades ago and wonder why energy slumps. The body asks for steadier protein, colorful plants, and kinder timing. The goal is not shrinking. It is feeding muscle, brain, and mood. Quick pointer. Aim for a palm-sized portion of protein at each meal. If afternoon crashes ease, you're on track. Rosa, 54, from San Antonio, taught third grade and skipped lunch to grade papers. By late day, she snapped at her brother on the phone and hated herself for it. I asked her to pack a small cooler, boiled eggs, cherry tomatoes, a handful of almonds, a piece of fruit. She ate outside on a bench. where the air carried faint playground chalk and cut grass. Within weeks, she said the school bell no longer sounded like a command but a rhythm. Her evening walk felt possible. She began sleeping heavier. What this means for a listener over 50, steadier meals with enough protein often stabilize energy and mood. First, build your plate around protein, vegetables, and whole grains you enjoy. Next, drink water before coffee late in the day. Then, be curious about portions and hunger signals rather than harsh. Finally, keep celebratory foods as celebrations, not daily ballast. If ignored, erratic eating may be associated with blood sugar swings that can cloud memory and sap energy. If this resonates, drop a simple note, steady. And if you want more gentle, practical guidance on healthy aging and longevity habits, subscribing ensures you don't miss the next nudge. Your mind is a garden. The label on the seed matters. Memory after midlife favors meaning and repetition. People tell me, names slip through me. Often it is stress, not broken recall. Learning still loves novelty, attention, and sleep. Quick pointer today. When you meet someone new, link their name to a visual and repeat it aloud once. If the name sticks by evening, your method works. Instruction: the pocket notebook method for names and details. First, carry a small card or notebook and a pen you enjoy touching. When you learn a name, look at the person's eyes and repeat the name while noticing one kind thing about them. Next, write the name with a quick visual cue. Maria, blue scarf, neighbor's friend. Then, in the evening, glance at the card and say the names quietly to yourself while exhaling slowly. Finally, place the card by your keys so you review it the next morning. Microstory 1. Armin, 62, near Boston, joined a community choir. The first rehearsal smelled faintly of old wood. He wrote down names paired with small images. At the next rehearsal, he greeted people correctly. Shoulders dropped around him. One touch, the smooth paper of his index card steadied his hands. What this means for a listener over 50, linking names to cues and reviewing once or twice improves recall. Microstory 2. Nora, 70, in Auckland, began learning basic Spanish to talk with her new neighbors. 10 minutes after breakfast, one gentle lesson, no pressure. One touch, the bright clink of a spoon in a cup marked the start. What this means for a listener over 50, tiny daily learning sessions often keep mental agility lively. Then, protect your attention by limiting multitasking. Finally, anchor new learning to sleep, review before bed. Skipping these may lead to frustration that feels like decline when it is often just noise. The breath that changes your day. Stress in midlife is not just a feeling. It lives in heart rate, blood pressure, and the tension behind your eyes. Slow breathing with longer exhales can nudge the nervous system toward calm. Many heart and mindfulness organizations highlight this as a safe, first-line practice for most, simple, portable, and free. Quick checkpoint. Place a hand on your chest. If your breath is high and shallow, it's time to practice. Instruction: the walk and exhale reset. First, begin walking at a gentle pace and let your arms swing naturally. Inhale through your nose for a comfortable count. Then exhale a little longer through your mouth, as if you are fogging a window. Next, keep your jaw soft and let your shoulders drop, feeling your feet roll from heel to toe. Then, match your exhale to 2 or 3 slow steps, adjusting so it feels easy. Finally, continue for the length of one street or one song, and finish by standing tall and noticing the space behind your eyes. Evelyn, 68, in Minneapolis, practiced this after her husband died. At first, the city sounded too loud. Buses hissed, crosswalk beeps were sharp. She pictured her sadness as a bird she could carry without caging. The air on her tongue tasted like clean snow. Weeks later, the same streets felt wider. She said, "I still miss him, but I don't feel trapped inside missing." What this means for a listener over 50, extending exhale while moving often eases tension and steadies mood. First, pair the reset with an existing walk. Next, use it before difficult conversations. Then, practice it in a hallway when weather keeps you in. Finally, notice sleep arriving sooner on nights you breathe longer. Ignoring stress care may be associated with headaches, irritability, and poorer concentration. If this helped, tell me one word that fits how you feel after a long exhale. Your words help others who are just starting. Time, money, and the art of saying enough. At this age, boundaries become a health tool. You cannot save everyone, and you cannot attend every invitation without borrowing energy from tomorrow. The trick is gentle constraint that protects what matters: movement, meals, sleep, and people. Quick pointer: write 2 non-negotiables for your mornings this week. If you defend them kindly, your days will feel longer. Microstory 1. Gareth, 59, in Cardiff, always answered work emails late. He began ending evenings with 2 sentences to himself: "The workday is closed. My night is for repair." One touch. The cool click of the lamp switch became his seal. What this means for a listener over 50: clear evening boundaries often improve rest and patience. Microstory 2. Maya, 63, in Melbourne, set a modest spending rule for treats and fun. She chose experiences over gadgets, shared more dinners, and felt less pressure. One touch. The warm hum of conversation in a small cafe beat any delivery box. What this means for a listener over 50: intentional spending can reduce stress and increase social joy. First, name your essentials. Next, say no kindly and quickly to misaligned requests. Then, create small buffers around sleep and meals. Finally, review your week on Sunday and adjust. Without this, time gets porous, which may lead to constant rush and soft burnout. A gentle invitation: if these lessons are helping you claim your time and well-being, consider subscribing. Add 1 comment with your single non-negotiable. It might gift someone else a new idea. Joy is not a luxury item. People think joy arrives after everything is fixed. In long lives, the order is reversed. Small joy creates energy to fix what can be fixed and accept what cannot. Purpose can be grand, but it can also be a plant that lives because you watered it, a neighbor greeted by name, a shoulder that grows strong enough to lift a grandchild. Quick pointer: choose 1 tiny delight to repeat daily. A song at breakfast, a cup of tea in a particular chair, a 10-minute sketch by a window. If your heart feels 1 degree warmer, you're aligned. Leon, 75, in Chicago, was a machinist who loved trains as a boy. He began photographing the commuter line at dusk. He described the rails as silver cords pulling the day tight. The camera strap against his wrist felt like a handshake with his younger self. Over weeks, his appetite returned, and he called his sister more often. What this means for a listener over 50: scheduled joy often lifts mood and sticks better than waiting for inspiration. First, schedule delight like medicine. Next, share it once a week with someone else. Then, protect it from errands. Finally, let it be small and repeatable. If you skip joy, days may flatten and motivation often fades. I'll end as I began, with a simple truth an old nurse shared with me years ago: take care of the morning, and the evening takes care of itself. If this journey speaks to you, stay with me. There's more we can build together, gently and steadily. Thank you for listening. If this brought you clarity or comfort, please subscribe, like, and tell me in a short comment which habit you'll try first. Your voice becomes part of someone else's courage.